Hey everyone, how you doing? Like everyone else, I've been watching what's going on the news with the protest, the looting and rioting and all that. And I just want to start off by saying that I'm in no shape or form affiliated with any news stations or anything, so I don't have any reason to be chained or hold back what I'm about to say. I'm going to keep this unfiltered. What I mean by unfiltered is that, unlike the news, I won't be filtering the truth to the point where it's just lacking any type of information. I'm just going to tell you like it is and how it should be told. And, I've been pursuing a solution for these issues because, like anyone else that's a minority, I am in the line of fire, as in, whether this involves me. If someone dies just because they look like me, then it should be an issue for me. I shouldn't wait for someone in my family or anything like that to occur for me to be offended by this type of situation. Now, what I've figured out is, in searching for a solution, is that I found it. I believe that I found it. And if anyone has anything to add to it, it's a positive thing. That's what we have to do. We got to conversate. We got to talk about solutions, not just showcasing the activity being done to us wrongfully. Now I'm gonna touch up on that situation. I have a 5-act system, 5 acts. Now, before I touch up on this, let me just touch up on one thing. The media is perfectly fine with showcasing on a national scale of black people, minorities being shot and killed by white police officers and so on. The reason they're fine with that is because they're feeding to those white supremacists that we can kill them. And what I mean by that is, if you notice, after covering the deaths of the people, they minimize their coverage to minimal to nothing when it comes to showcasing the people coming up with a solution, searching for answers, demanding answers. The reason for that is that they want to instill in the minority community that, and I mean subconsciously, they want to administer that what's happening to these people is the norm, that you should accept it, that you should be okay with it as long as it doesn't harm you. And they feed this subconsciously until it becomes a conscious thing, where you see a lot of black people, Spanish people, Asians, Indians, and so on, just walking around like these issues don't affect them because, they haven't been shot yet, or one of their family members hasn't been shot yet. And at the same time, this, to the white supremacists at large, it feeds the notion that what they're doing is okay. It's acceptable. And, it's their right. It's their right as white Americans. Now, I'm going to touch up on another thing. Now, why am I talking about white supremacy? Well, I'm not going to cover or showcase any proof. If you want the evidence, you could go on the internet yourself and see this yourself. Now, in this country, it's okay for Ku Klux Klan members to advertise that they need more members. They can recruit in the public eye. They can even showcase images of blacks being shot or killed. Such as, I was watching something online where I saw people at a gun range selling, shoot Negro. You know what I'm saying? So now, what does this have to do with it? You got to understand that it's okay for domestic terrorists to be at large, especially when you consider the Ku Klux Klan's history, which is over 50 years, it's over 80 years of history of domestic terrorism. Now, then you get something like an ISIS, where, they commit, terrorism and whatnot, and what happens is the government immediately comes after them, tries to put them in prison, tries to wipe them out, while those in the Ku Klux Klan members, those who are at home and at large, nothing happens to them. Now, the reason for this. And the way I look at it is, who is in charge of this country mostly? Who are the political figures? I mean, in this country, we're still having the first black mayor in this state and that state and so on. So you gotta look at it like this. If you don't incarcerate or imprison or punish the Ku Klux Klan members or those white supremacists, you don't, what I'm saying, you don't make it look bad for your own culture. And what I mean by that is, look at it that most officials in this country, political figures, are, let's be honest, they're white, so, but I'll touch up on that on another video. Now, let me get to the solution to the protesting. What I've figured out is that, and I've been saying this for months to years, in fact, I've been saying this for years, the problem we mostly do is that we protest, we're angry, we go around angry, we're yelling, but we don't have a proper list of demands, or, we don't have a solution to the issue. So basically we go around protesting, and we just protest until we burn ourselves out, until you run out of energy. That's what happens. And another thing with protesting is that you're protesting to, when you're protesting without a solution, you're basically just yelling and hoping that they'll listen to you and try to help you. But let's be honest, they don't want to help you. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look at it like this. When they talk about the American dream, you're excluded. If you're African American, Asian American, Chinese American, whatever, that doesn't apply to you. I mean, think about it. When you apply for a job, the only people that are referred to as Americans are white people. So it has nothing to do with you, Now, here's my solution to the issue at hand. Now, how do you go about protesting and reach a solution and accomplish a solution that isn't a settlement? Because one of the problems we have is we just settle. They give you a small amount, we'll take care of them, we'll stop these cops and so on. It's bull. It's just they put a band-aid on a broken leg. That's what they usually do. Now, here's my solution to the problem. And I believe that the solution should come from people like me, people who are in the line of fire, as in people who are in your community, not outside of it, that don't have nothing to do with this. And it's got to be a it's, I'll cover more of it, but here it is. I have a 5-act system. 5 acts. Let me switch up. 5-act system. Now, here's the system, and the system is very simple. The thumb represents the neutral foundation. I'm going to go into what this all means. Now, this right here represents securing the foundation. This right here represents the list of demands that, that must be met, that must be needed. And this right here, my bad. This right here, forget it. All I'm saying is, it's a 5-act system. Neutral foundation, securing the foundation, list of demands, action, and finally, the resolution. And now, why choose I know some people are going to ask, why choose the pinky as the resolution? Because the hardest thing to get is the goal you want. It's not hard to form around a solution, to get together to acquire it. Now, here is the solution, plain and simple. What we as a community and on a township scale, it can't be that we all try to unify from cross states. No. That's not the right way to do it, since every state in this country passes their laws separately. You can't expect that you getting together with other people from other states will equal a solution. What you got to do is on a township level. And now here's what you got to do, and it's very plain and very simple. What you got to do is you got to form a foundation on a neutral plane in your township, as in your your community center. You got to form you got to get together in the community center. And what you do is this community center will be the base of operations. And this base of operations will be for those you will elect and form a council. And now what is this council? You got to form a council within your community. And each of these council members have to live in the community. And they got to live there, and they have to be some of the brightest, as in they have to be high, they have to at least have graduated high school and college. And now, why should you form a council? The reason you need to form a council is that it needs to be neutral ground, as in, to do something, we got to put religion aside, we got to put gender aside, sexuality. We have to put all of that aside, because everyone that lives in a community shouldn't be judged by what they believe and whatnot. It should be, we want to make our community the best it can be. Now, what you do is, you make this community center the form of, it's the main place of operations. And what you do is, in this township, you host a election. And with this election, you elect, similar to the presidency. When I went to college, we had this same system in organizations. With this community organization, you elect a secretary, a president, a vice president, and I forget the word. Treasury. You elect these members from within your community. Now, their job, as leaders within the community, is to represent the community. Now, that's step one. That's forming the foundation. You host a community election. To form the foundation will be an organization led by people in the community for the community. Now, another thing is, parties have nothing to do with this. It doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Independent. All of that has to be pushed aside for the betterment of the community. Now, after that's done, after the election and so on, what you have to do, the very next step, is, how do you secure this foundation of a new organization bent on representing the community? What you got to do, once you have the treasury, the secretary, the vice president and president and so on of this community organization, is that, from within the community, excluding anyone outside of the town, only people in this town can vote for these members of this organization. Only people in the community. It can't be that they've lived here 5 years ago. If they're not currently living in the community, or should I say, the township, they do not have a right to vote within the township. Now, here's how this will work. After you've gotten your treasury, your secretary, your vice president, and president of this newly formed community organization, now what you need to do as a community is start funding it. One of the problems we have, and I've seen it, is that a lot of people protest, but there's not a organization that's being funded by the community that's protesting, at a very close level. And what I mean by that is, what we've got to do as a community, as a township, is that we have to do it like this. Anybody below the age of 21, the requirement will be that $5 a month be put from that parent or guardian or so on, into this organization's funding. And now anyone 21 years old, anyone 21 and up, has to put around $10. And now they can put extra if they want. If they want to put at least a maximum, the minimum requirement will be for anyone 21 and up would be $10. And while anyone below 21, it will be the minimum requirement will be $5. But anyone wants to put extra, like let's say somebody's wants to put more money, they would put maybe if for anyone 21 and up, they can put 15 to at least $20, and anyone 18, below 21 could put $5 to 10. The reason you want to fund this organization is that it's gonna step into my next step. But before I cover that, is that you want to have money coming into this system. And let me go into why you want this money. And this will be part of the second step. And the second step is securing this organization and foundation. And what I mean by that is that by putting funding into this organization for the community, you can now hire people to secure the community. Now, we all know with the issues with the police and the fact that, let's be honest, they're not gonna change anytime soon. It's not gonna happen. So what you have to do, and this borrows from the militias, and it borrows from the Black Panther Party. What you have to do with the money I was talking about in step one, act one, is that now with this extra money being put into this organization by the township, you can now hire a community enforcement. And what I mean by community enforcement is that you hire a set of people within. It can only be within the community. You hire a set of people, and their jobs are to walk around the community, and like the police, they would have cameras, they would have recording devices all over their body. And funds from the organization formed by the community would pay these people. And their job would be similar to a security guard. Their job would be to walk around the community. Also, they have to be armed. So these officials within the community have to have gun licenses and so on. Now let me get to why. The reason they have to have gun licenses is their job will be to walk around the community. And cover the entire township. You'll have to have multiple people and so on. And they'll go around the community, and their job is to ensure that, no officials, no police, no one is abusing their authority against anyone in the community. And the reason they'll be armed with cameras as well as guns, firearms, is that if a police officer is abusing his authority, these people can tell them, they can warn them to get off. And with the camera on them, they can actually show footage of them telling this officer that they're abusing their authority and that they have to get away from the person they're abusing. And them being armed, if this officer seems like he's about to take fatal force, they can actually, attack this officer and take him out. You know what I'm saying? This is all precautionary, if this occurs. And they'll have a camera on themselves as well as recording devices on their suits that would be funded by the community. And this community enforcement would only apply to the township. It would act like basically like a security guard. I've worked security, and we were given certain areas for us to, we walk around, we observe and report. And there were armed security guards, and the jobs of the armed security guards were similar to us security guards without weapons, but they could take, they could administer legal, fatal force if necessary. But in the case of the community enforcement, they would be armed with cameras, top to bottom, listening devices. So if it goes to court, they can prove that what they were doing was for the sake of the community. It was to protect the community's people. And the job of these township community enforcers would be to simply walk around the community, let the police officers know that they are not only being watched by the community, but that these people will defend their community if necessary, and that these people would be armed with licensed issued or issued firearms, but and all that. Now, another thing in this act 2 securing the community is that with the money being funded into this organization by the township itself, you know it could fund it could fund activities by the council, the elected council members that would represent the community, such as negotiating and providing services for the community, at large. Now, part three, you know, part three is the list of demands. What you would need in Act 3, which is a list of demands, is that you need a list of demands that must be met to ensure that the community is at peace, at peace with to ensure that the community is at peace with how the political figures and police are behaving. And now, here are the acts I personally set up, personally think that have to be met. And this list of demands will go into Act 4. Act 4 will be how do you get these list of demands done. Now, we're still on Act 3, and Act 3 is the list of demands. Now, what must be meant is that, and I'm going to touch up on the police first. What must be meant is that 30 to 40% of the police officers in a town must live in that town. The reason for this is that they would be more aware of the townsfolk and how people interact and how they behave with each other. They would be more at ease in that community since they are a part of that community. Now the remaining, since it will be 30%, the remaining 50% must be within that state. So that, so 50% must be from the state they're policing. It can't be outside of state. Now, the 20% remaining, it could be from out of town, out of state. It could be out of state, whatever. The reason for this is that by having officers that are actually from the environment, they can coexist, easier. Instead of having, like they have right now, most officers don't even live in that town. They'll kill someone, they'll shoot someone and go right back to their nice little neighborhood and, and don't show any remorse. They don't care because they're not part of that community. Now, another requirement that must be met on this list is that there must be a zero tolerance. And what I mean by zero tolerance is that anyone who is an officer, a police officer found committing fraud, abusing their authority, must be removed from that position immediately. Then they must go into a 10-year probationary probationary thing where they can't be officers in any state. It doesn't matter if it's, outside of the state where they lost their position. They can't be a police officer for 10 years, because when you have a position and a job as a police officer, you are literally judge, jury, you basically can lock a person up, you can affect their lives, and your judgment could decide their very fate, whether they live or die. So, there should be a zero tolerance when it comes to any officer found abusing their authority or anything. Now, Here's another list. I'm going to stay on the police. Is that any officer who commits a crime, via murder, killing, stealing, their sentence must be multiplied by 3. They must serve 3 times the requirement that a citizen would serve. The reason for this is that since police officers don't have a line, they don't have something to, keep them balanced, compared to the citizen. And you're a citizen, you attack an officer, you get more time. So it should be the same requirement that they should be held to an even higher stature, higher, higher thing, you know what I'm saying? So 3 times the maximum for the average person. You know what I'm saying? This would keep police officers balanced. This would keep them away from having that thought that they're godlike compared to the average person once they put that badge on, And this would solve a lot of things. Now, another thing to, staying on the police is that we have to have a separation between the police and the prison system. As in police officers who, shouldn't be informing the prisons how many people they've arrested. There shouldn't be a quota, because one of the troubling factors is that the police officers are paid by your taxes. You keep them employed. And now they're getting even more money from the prisons and so on, or getting paid more for meeting a quota. An officer shouldn't be looking to lock someone up or imprison them. They should just be looking to protect, serve, and protect. And we have to separate them from the prison, because it's a conflict of interest, and that's what's going on right now. Is that the police officers in the prisons are, collaborating. They're working together. It's kind of like this. If you look at I've watched a lot of National Geographic. I've watched a lot of Animal Planet, where you have poachers. You got to look at it like this. The police officers aren't supposed to, arrest you without cause or injure you. But because they're so close to the prisons, which need to constantly get a population of new prisoners coming in, they're, in a sense, they're poachers. Like they're working for the prisons to illegally, capture and arrest people without reason. And that's why I use this metaphor, that they're poachers in a way. And by separating that, connection between the police officers in the prisons, we won't have that conflict of interest that they're searching to arrest people without cause. You know what I'm saying? Because we all as citizens are already paying for these officers with our tax money. So they shouldn't be seeking to make any more money and then arresting people without cause. Now, still sticking with the police, still sticking with them, we have to, and I mean we have to, with that handled. In fact, let me get away from the. Yeah. Let me get back. I lost my train of thought for a second. Sticking with the police, the chiefs, the police chiefs, any police officer, found who have committed murder or heinous acts abusing their authority, their chief, the person in charge of that precinct, should be held accountable. That they should lose their job, for the misconduct of their officers. This would force police chiefs and so on to stay, to be more, heads on, more interactive in ensuring that their police officers represent the force in the most honorable fashion. So any officer who's committed murder or is arresting people based on racial reasons, their chief will be removed. And the township the people of that township will elect a new police chief, based on requirements that they feel that police chief met. And another thing is the township has to do is any mayors or governors that know this is going on and that don't support the township or the community have to be removed from office. They have to resign. You cannot expect to reform or move forward with an old mind state, a person who was there during the harshest times, that accepted what happened to you, because that's what's going on right now, that people keep electing and re-electing the same people expecting reform when these people revert to their old ways. For instance, now they're trying to cut the voting rights of minorities, affirmative action. They're trying to cut a lot of things. It's because we have an old system, an old guard in charge. Okay, now moving away from the police and all that, it's now to touch up on we have to, and I mean we have to, a list of demands that have to be met is that all cases of arrest have to be reopened. Anyone who's been given an unjust amount of time because of their race and their culture, they have to be let out of prison, and that judicial system has to reimburse them for that time. And those judges and officials that gave them more time than they deserve due to their race and ethnicity have to be removed from their position. And just like I said before with the police, they have to serve 3 times the amount for anything, 3 times the amount of time that the average citizen would face. Now, the reason, you want these people out of prison is that not only is it the right thing to do, but that a lot of family members miss their, be it a father or child that is serving more time than they should. And now if, and the statistics are already out there, so this has to be open, and they have to let people out and make sure that they were given the fair amount of time for their crime. Now, another thing that has to be meant, staying on this prisoner thing, is that when people come out of jail, they have to be able to find a job. That there should not be any discrimination of them getting a job unless it's something like they went to jail for pervertic activity. You know what I'm saying? Pervert, rapers, things of that nature, things that don't allow them to work with the public at large. The reason for this is that when someone's gone to prison, they've served their time. They've served their time, so they've served their time for the crime. So why do they come out back into society and are still imprisoned, still being punished when they've served the time for their crime? And the reason the system is like this is that by keeping the prison population out of the regular workforce, is that they have it set up that way because they don't want those prisoners to inform the potential youth of the crimes they've done, to stop them from committing this crime before they go to prison. So they can keep a revolving door. By having prisoners not being able to find a job, they can't warn their, those youths in their community to not go to prison. So that prison is a revolving door. Constantly new people keep coming without cause. And another reason it should be, should be illegal, and these companies should be fined for not hiring anybody from prison, is that it creates decaying activity in the community. Now, if you went to jail and you can't find a job, You come back to your community, you've served your time, you've done all you can. And in fact, let me use a metaphor quick. If your child misbehaved and you put them in timeout, once that timeout is over, you welcome back, you welcome them back into your arms and give them the love and respect because they've served their time out. That's what should happen to our, to people who went to jail. They should be looked upon as people who made, a wrongful action or a mistake, and that they've served their time and they should be forgiven for what they've done. But let me get back. The reason this is bad for the community is that when you can't find a job, you've done your time, you've done everything you can, you've served your time, you've been released, you start preying on your own community. You start attacking and robbing your own community members. People from your own town, they become your prey. They become victims because you can't find a job. How are you going to survive when you're not being hired, wrongfully when you've served your time? So that is part of the list of demands that no company, and companies should be heavily fined for discriminating against prisoners. Now another thing is this should be enforced also for discrimination of employment due to race and ethnicity. Another thing that has to be removed from the employment, not only the employment, but the vocabulary of people, is that if you were born here, you're an American. You're not African American. You're not Spanish American. You're not Asian American. You're American. The reason, you have to take this into heart is that, the only people referred to as Americans in this country are white people. Now, to remove that, everyone should be called American. And if they want to go deeper into the ethnicity of your nationality, then you could post I'm a Black American, I'm an Asian American, and so on. But it shouldn't be, right on the form that are you African American, Asian American, and so on. Now, that should be fined heavily because there's a lot of discrimination going on when it comes to hiring. As soon as they see your race, your ethnicity, or where you come from, they toss that application aside, and they usually hire one or two of you so they could say they've met a quota, quota. Look at that, a quota similar to the police thing, but they meet a quota. Now, after that's done, okay, now that's done with, another list of demands the community should have is that, in fact, I'll leave it to you guys. I'll leave it to you to make up more on the list of, more on the list of demands. In fact, no, I have one more. One thing they should do, they do this for Native Americans, but they need to do it for Black people. And they really need to do it, especially for Blacks that are descendants of slaves. They should not have to pay to go to college. At least for a bachelor's, up to a bachelor's, you shouldn't pay, because what happened after slavery is that, they let the slaves, they gave some of them freedom, some were unjustly imprisoned. They went from slavery to prison. They were told that, their freedom paper wasn't just or right, and they were just placed into prison anyway, So, and another thing is, billions, trillions of dollars from slavery were given to these masters who, though they lost their slaves, they had a upper hand against Blacks that were free. Instead of giving the Blacks, the former slaves, new jobs and new positions in the American government and work so they can be transitioned into the country, they weren't given anything. So you basically, and then you have a lot of discrimination. They didn't want to give Black people that time, pieces of land or work. You had a lot of slaves who go back to work straight for their masters, but But you know, I'll leave that for another conversation. But like I said, anybody who's a descendant of a slave, you know what I'm saying, descendant, your family, your bloodline, you should go to school, college for free. You know what I'm saying? That should be one on the list of demands, up to the bachelor's. You know, up to the bachelor's. That should be it. Now I'll leave the list of demands for now. Now this is Act 4. Now we have our list of demands. Act 4 is action. What do I mean by action? Well, with the resources, you know, of this township organization, funded exclusively by people who live in the community. Only people in the community can donate, as I said in Act 1, in forming a foundation. Only people from that community that live there can donate money to this. And only people from that community can vote to, you know what I'm saying, vote for the new council, new treasury, new positions of the leadership of that community. The reason for this is to keep it pure, to keep it that only people in that community can affect it. You know, it gives people that we're all in this together. You know, I've seen it in certain towns where this happens. You know, so now let's get back to the action. Now, what does the action part of this has to do with it in Act 4? Well, action will be protesting, bringing your list of demands to the mayors, not just the mayors, but the state capitol where bills are being passed. Petitions will be signed, and mayors and so on, by the people in the community, you know. And that is why the funding will be used for paying transportation and so on. And another thing is, by having an organization that, you know, funded by the community, is that people can have enough funds to organize protests better, you know, have refreshments and food, you know, to keep the protesters going. One of the biggest failures of protesting is that a lot of protesters, it's not organized. You know, these protesters burn themselves out, be it from hunger, be it from the fact that they're not in shifts. For instance, you should be able to go to work, come right back to the protest. You know, it's not organized enough. And another thing I forgot to cover is that, no, in fact, yeah, this is Act 4. Another thing is that every year, this community, this township organization should have the youth develop a symbol that represents this organization, from the high schools, kindergartens, and college, you know, schools and all that. And it would be created by the youth, so the youth can participate in this, you know. And another thing is, by having that every year, the organization symbol changes, it's teaching people that change and something new isn't wrong, as long as it represents the correct thing. And the way you would go about doing this is that every school that's involved in coming out with a new symbol for the community every year, that'll be revealed in the new year, would, you know, they would vote in their school. And then each school's final, you know, the one that won, the design that won, would be placed in a raffle. And the raffle that is picked would be chosen as the community's new symbol. You know, that way people could wear this symbol. This could be sold to fund the community's fund the community's organization. And you know, and another thing I forgot to cover this in Act 1 is that the community's council, you know, with the treasury and so on, the bank account would be available to everyone in the community, as in everyone in the community can see at any time where the expenditures are being made. And the expenditures would only be allowed for, you know, political reasons, to better the community, protesting, and fundraising and so on. Now that I've gotten that out the way, now let's get further into the action aspect. And the reason, number 4, Act 4's action, is that you can protest. Now you have funding, you have a proper, foundation, a proper system. You can take action now. You could take action by bringing a list of demands that were signed and petitioned by the community to the mayors. And since other communities would get this system going, more community leaders, the community leaders, let's say you're in a different township, I'm in a different township. We're both leaders within that township community board. We can meet and we can discuss if our list of demands are the same list of demands you require. Then we could sign these petitions together and go to the governor and showcase that the whole community across other townships want this to be done, And now if this mayor or so on doesn't enact the requirement, the list of demands by the community, you have enough funding and money to continue protesting. And then, you have enough money to, keep it going. And another thing is with this organized community, you can actually force that governor or official to resign. You know what I'm saying? And it can be done because the community as a whole, if you separate their factions, Democrats, Republican, none of that matters. What has to come first is the community, And if this is done from a statewide example, for instance, everyone in their state is taking care of their state and their community, that they can honestly say racial crimes, police do not, do not abuse their authority in our community, then it will spread statewide. One of the biggest issues we have, is that, we turn to Al Sharpton and all these other people. They're outdated. You can't continue to follow people that have only led to failures. Let's be honest. And another thing is they want you to march. This is how you can tell they're not invested in the right mannerism, is that they want you to march to Washington, D.C. when they know whatever happens in Washington, D.C. doesn't affect other states. So we have to take care of our own state, our own town, our own city first. Then we can enact reform. And that's Act 4. Act 4 is action. And with action, you could fund local community events, community festivals, celebrating the community, celebrating the children there, hosting events that bring the community closer. One of the biggest flaws we have, and the reason we can call certain areas hoods, is that the community, the neighbors aren't together. And this is another thing I'm gonna touch up on in action, Act 4 action. Every community should have a community social account, like a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, for people of that community, and only people of that community can post on it. The reason for this is that when something happens in the community, it could be posted, for instance, a child missing. It could be posted directly to the community. So everyone in that community could be united on finding this child. A fire, something being lost, anything could be reported to that, And let me go a little back to Act 2 securing. The reason we need a community enforcement is that by having a community enforcement that acts similar to the Black Panthers and the militia, that is invested in solely the community. It has nothing to do with politics, solely the community, is that you would have people that are part of this enforcement that know this town. So when a child is outside too late, they can now post that child's image online and say, whose kid is that, on the community social site. And they could call in the parent or call in someone and help that child get home. And by them knowing the community, they can walk that child home. And they have cameras on them, so nothing funny can happen. So, that covers action. Now, accomplishment, which I use the pinky to represent. Accomplishment is when the community list of demands are met. We should not settle. One of the things they don't show, they always show Rosa Parks as they show Rosa Parks that she just didn't sit down she didn't want to sit in the back. But in actuality, what happened is that they were protesting, they were boycotting the public transportation for over 2 years. They were, people were in carpools, they were driving back to work, which nearly put the public transportation in that area out of business. We need to stop settling for what these officials give you. They have to meet the demand of the community. And that will give us a sense of accomplishment. And we don't, even if we accomplish this, even if, let's say, we get it's now illegal, officers face more time, government officials face three times, any official faces far more time for their crimes. Then people are being released from prison, being released from prison that have served given more time than they deserve. Even if everything goes right and we meet our accomplishment, we meet our deadline, we meet our list of demands, we don't stop. Because as soon as you stop, for instance, let's say you tear down this community organization, as soon as you do that, you leave the door open for things to revert to the way they were. That's what's happening. That's what happens. So we keep this organization of community on a township level. Every town should have their own township organization with, as I mentioned, the 5 acts. A neutral foundation. This foundation has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with gender, has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with political views. It is a foundation formed on simply getting the best people, the best leaders of that community in a position where they can lead the community to a better horizon. And part 2, securing the foundation, is you hire community enforcement, and community enforcement will be people from the town, only people from that town, not people who have lived there, none of that, exclusively people that still live in that community to patrol it. And they must all be armed, with firearms. They must have their firearms registered by the state. They must be covered in bulletproof vest with cameras, the GoPro cameras, all that, sound recording devices with a live feed on the community social site. That way we can see what's going on in the community. And their job, 8-hour shift, is to report clear, not clear. They're not police officers. They're just here to watch and patrol the community. If anything goes wrong, like some child missing, they'll report, they'll bring that kid home or place that kid in the proper facilities. If an officer is abusing their power against someone in the community, they will act. And another thing, they should be given, certain discounts around the community. And Act 3, as I stated, is a list of demands. We need to know what we want before we take action. And that's Act 4. Act 4 is the action. You know, Act 4 is the action. Protest. We should be organizing our protests, teaching everyone how to properly do it. And everyone in that community should be wearing that symbol that is exclusively sold in that township. So when protesters are being filmed, they have that community symbol on them. So it's unified. So it can be shown that everyone protesting is a unified unit. That's what we need. And Act 5 is accomplishment. Act 5 is when we obtain our list of demands. Once we've done our action, which is and protesting and signing petitions and so on. Now, Act 6. Act 6 is I didn't want to include it, but Act 6 is if all that protesting is met with violence and is met with aggression and danger rather than understanding and respect, then that community must see that this is a threat to them, and they must take the comparable response to that. If the politicians' political system is sending in police officers as their guard dogs, and that their way is law, Act 6 is basically very simple. Act 6 is if you cannot reason with them, and you got to take the right form of action to get what this community deserves. Thank you. And that's really all I had to say. And this 5-act system can be placed to work around anything, any issue, be it racism, genderism, sexism. It could be used for any of this, because like I said, until we can say in our town, in our community, this does not occur, then it will only escalate, and it will occur. That's what's going on with the Ferguson, Baltimore, all this stuff. What's happened is that a community separated, separated, leaves itself open to being attacked, to being damaged, being led to destruction. And another thing is, like I said, the news stations don't care. They're corporations owned by, mostly, let's be honest, they're mostly owned by white people. So most of these people could care less about the black people or minorities getting their rights. They're more focused on a CVS or a super, windows being damaged in a person's life. Let me tell you, I'm gonna end this right now. A building can be rebuilt. A facility can be rebuilt. But a human life cannot be rebuilt and cannot be returned to that sad mother, that sad parent, that sad daughter, that sad family member, relative, guardian. It cannot be returned. So the news has just told you that they value entities, inanimate objects more than the community. So take that to heart. Don't listen to them. Don't watch them. They're not here for you. And I'll touch up on some other things, but I sincerely hope that this has, led to you all talking amongst one another. And anyone asking, how can I help? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 steps. Share this. And another thing is, get active in your community. Form, like I said, this 5-act system. You know what I'm saying? This 5-act system. Use it. Because if it takes more than 5 acts for you to secure your community and the livelihood of the children and the innocent people there, then it's not worth doing. This is a simple issue, and it must be met with a simple setup. You know what I'm saying? So, oh, thank you for watching.